back to lesson 30 of the GED. So we are discussing powers and roots today. Fun. Okay, so basically a few things to remember when discussing power and roots, or when dealing with powers, for example, is let's see, these examples right here. Okay, it says number 1, a number raised to the first power equals so like 8 to the first power is equal to 8. So that's the same with every number that's above 0. Okay, so if you do 10 to the power of 1, same thing, it'll equal 10. 5 to the power of 1, it'll equal 5. And so on and so forth. Then you have a number other than 0 raised to the power of 0 equals 1. So see how they have the 6 raised to the power of 0? It'll always equal 1. So same with the other example. If you have a 10 to the power of 0, it'll equal 10. 5 to the power of 0, it'll equal, sorry, I said it will equal 10. I meant it'll equal 1. And if you have 5 to the power of 0, it will equal 1. And so on and so forth. Then the last one, a number raised to a negative exponent is equal to a fraction with a numerator of, with a fraction. So you have 4, with the power of negative square. So they don't like negative exponents so much. So what they do is you have to, so if you can imagine 4 to the power of 2, in reality is actually, if you put this number into a fraction, it's 4 over 1, like this. Okay, 4, so this is the number that you see there, 4 negative 2. You can imagine it like this, because anything over 1 is the number itself. So in this case, it'll be, to make the power a positive, it'll have to be a 1 on top of it. Okay? So that's just how they go about it. Don't ask me why. Let me erase this here. Okay, so for most of these, like when I was studying this, when I did tests and stuff, you can use calculator, all that good stuff. So that's mostly what we'll be doing in general, dealing with exponents. Unless they're really small numbers, you should use a calculator, because exponents can become, the answer to exponents can become quite large. Okay, so you can think of powers and exponents. They're kind of like, when people use them interchangeably, this is an exponent, which is 2 to the power of 5. So a lot of times people will use exponents and powers interchangeably. So let's see. Another thing also is they do have, you can find lists of perfect squares and perfect cubes, which also kind of help, so that you don't really have to guess when doing certain problems. So let's get started here. Actually, I just want to show you, just to give you an idea of what a power is, a visual idea. So you have 2 to the power of 5. It actually equals this. If you want to imagine what this looks like, it's the same as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 5 times. This is basically what the 5 is indicating, that this 2 is multiplied 5 times. Okay, so you would get 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 2 times 16 is 32. So essentially that's what you're doing. Okay? But just like few this thing here gets to be pretty long, so they kind of shorten it by just using that exponent there. Anything else up here we need to talk about? Then square roots, for example, square root, say, 144. The square root of it is the two numbers that would evenly create 144. So we know 12 times 12 is 144. Okay? So when they want you to find the square root, that's what they're asking. That number which number that times multiplied by itself equals that square root, okay? Or equals that number of which is 144. So let's get started here. First problemo, 3 to the second power, okay? I know it says not to use a calculator. I might use the calculator for some of these, but 3 to the second power, which actually means 3 times 3. We know that that equals 9. Okay. Then we have number 2, 4 to the power of 1. So anything to the power of 1 equals itself. So this equals 4 one time. Okay. So equals 4. Then we have, find the square root of 9. Well, we already have it here. 3 times 3 equals 9. But if you wanted to do that on the calculator, which you will generally always be using for square roots, you can look up square root here. Square root of 9, close the parentheses, okay, equals 3. So there we have it. Number 4, let's see, number 2, number 3 is 3, coincidentally. Okay, so then we have 25 to the power of 0. Remember what we said, anything to the power of 0 is 25 itself. So the answer to number 4 would be 25. Okay, then number 5 here. So what these parentheses mean is that this number here, okay, 3, negative 3 will be multiplied 2 times. So the parentheses mean anything inside of here to the second power. Okay. So let's see. So how that would actually affect you. Let me clear this canvas first. How that would actually affect you is, for example, if you had it like this, negative 3, these are parentheses by the way, to that power, this answer would actually come out differently than a negative 3, than a negative inside there. For example, 3 to the power, negative 3 to the power of 2, so this negative only applies to what's in the parentheses, which would be 9, because 3 times 3 is 9. Then you would bring that negative down here, and it would be a negative 9. However, if it was how it's written, this would actually end up being a positive 9. And the reason why is in algebra, anything, 2 negatives equal a positive. Okay, so if you do 2 times 2, negative 2 times negative 2, it would be positive 4. You know, negative 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. Positive 9, sorry. So 2 negatives equal positive. If I messed up on the previous one, correct that. So again, this is letting you know that you are multiplying 2 negative numbers. This, however, this in this case, the negative symbol does not apply to the power here. So you can think of this as being one negative, and one negative is always negative, okay? So, and it actually goes in order. I may have talked about this earlier, but I can't remember. So if you have any odd number will be a negative, and any even number, this is multiplied, um, any even number will be a positive. So, for example, 1 negative, like negative 3 times 3 will be a negative 3. And also 3, let's see, negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 will also be a negative number, okay, because it's odd amount of numbers. But if it's even amount of numbers, like 4, negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3, it'll come out to be a positive answer, so it has an even amount of negative signs. Okay. Let's see, so we have to find the square root of 49. Since I do have a little practice, I know that that is 7. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to bring up my calculator so we can do that. Square root of 49 is 7. See? 7. Okay. And we have number 7 here, which is 5 times 5 times 5. So we know 5 times 5 here is 25. So then 25, don't actually need to write this, but just to give you a visual. 25 times 5 equals, well, 4 times 25 is 100. Okay, because 4 times 25 pennies is $1, which is 100 cents. Then 1 more 5 is 125. A way to do that on the calculator is, this is typically the square root symbol. There will also be another number typically on scientific calculators that you can do specifically for square roots. And sorry, I said this is a square root symbol. I actually meant that this is the power symbol. Okay, and let's see, there will be another number on the calculator which is also a square number, which means only if there's a power of 2. So 5, the question was 5, or the problem was 5 to the power of 3. Okay, typically in the scientific calculators this would be a smaller number on top. Then we hit equals 125. So we were correct. So let's see, number 8 here will be, what is that for? Well, we know, what do you call it? Okay, I'll just use some calculator. Just going to try and explain it, but so this equals 0.0625, which we know is 1/16, okay? So that'll be your answer. I know the GED in the answer key, they want you to put this number, or they give you this number. Technically, that number that we saw, which is this number here. 625 would not be incorrect. Okay. Now we have 2 to the power of 4, so 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Oh, sorry, I said 2 times 2 is 8. I actually meant 4. That's right, 4. Then 2 times 4 is 8. Then 2 times 8 is 16. And then 2 times 16 is 32. Times 2 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 8. So yeah, this would actually be 16, because 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, sorry, I got confused below. I don't normally explain this like this. 3 times 2 is 4. See it like that if you like. And 2 times 4 is 8. And 2 times 8 is 16. Okay, so 16 is your answer for that one. Let's see, then we have another square root here. What is the square root of 64? Well, if you being smart people like I know you are, know your times tables, then you will know that the square root of 64 is 8 times 8. Okay, so 8 is the square root of 64. You're just looking for one number. You don't have to do this here because it is implied with the square root that this number times itself is what equals the 64. Then we have 10 times negative 3, or 10 to the negative third power would be, well, you kind of already know that 10 times 10 is 100, 10 times 100 is 1,000, 10 to the negative third, or negative third power, equals 1,000th, okay? So we know this is 1,000th because this is 1,000th place, tens, hundreds, thousands, okay? So again, the answer key shows 1 over 1,000, although technically the other number is not incorrect. Then we have here the square root of 121. We know that 11 times 11 is 21, so the square root of 121 is 11. Okay, so square root 1, 2, 1, close the parentheses, equals 11. Okay, now to continue. This one does say you can use the calculator, but anyways, I think you guys get the general idea here. I'll do a couple of these as well. So 3 times, well, 3 to the power of 8 is, let's see, is a big number. Trying to move this around so I don't have to minimize it the whole time, well, every time. So what would, yeah, 3 to the 8th power. You're thinking, man, those are pretty small numbers. Just imagine, as you multiply 3 8 times with each multiplication. 3 times 3, and 3 times 9 is 27, and 3 times 27. The number keeps getting bigger and bigger exponentially. So that's how it gets so large like that. That's why for these types of numbers you use a calculator. Okay. Next one here is -6. So we can see here that this is going to be a positive number, okay? Because there are an even amount of negatives, because 4 times -6 4 times is multiplying -6 by even amount of numbers. Now, if this was a 3 here instead of a 4, we know that we would get a negative number. And actually, I think I'll show you that. I'll show you the difference. I don't know if this calculator will allow for that, but let's see. We have -6, close parentheses, to the power of 4 equals 1296. If we were to do -6 to the power of 3, we would get equals -216, okay? Alright, so the root of 150, okay, actually this one here says round your answer to the nearest tenth. So square root of 150, do this, square root 150, close the parentheses, equals 12.2, okay, because we have 2, this is the 10th place, and hundreds, thousands, etc. So we need to get to the nearest 10th place, since there's a 4 behind it, which is under 5, it remains, what was that, 12.2, I believe? 12.2, let's see, yes, that is 12.2. Okay, next one is 20 to the third power. With the even numbers, it's a little bit easier to do in your head, because 20 times 20 is what, 400? 2 times 2 is 4. Add the 2 zeros to it. So 20 to the power, by the way, when I said 400, that was one calculation. You would need to multiply that by 20. And to the power of 3, 20 to the power of 3 is 8,000. Okay? That is 20 times 20 times 20. 17, 1 to the power of 15. Okay, it's a little bit of a tricky one. Not really, but kind of. So we know that 1 times anything is always 1, or always the number that is multiplied by 1. So 1 times, for example, 10 would equal 10. In this case, we have 1 to the power of 15, so it would be 1 times 1, we know is 1. So then times 1, we know would be 1, times 1, we know would be 1, etc., 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 all the way up to 15. So 1 to any power is always 1. Then we have -4 to the power of -2. Okay. Not sure where the calculator went. If I close it, there it is. Okay, so -4 power of -2. Well, we know, let's see, parentheses, parentheses basically grouping this number as one number. So -4 to the power of -2 equals the same number as we had, not just previously, but a bit earlier, which is 0.0625, which remember is 1/16. Okay, and if you actually want to work this out, so you have tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. Okay, this goes up to 10,000s place. So we know that this number is 0.625, okay, over 10,000. And we have to try and find a number that will go into both of these. And since they're even numbers, that's pretty easy, okay? Biggest one here, we know if this was a 50, 650, I'd do 50 because I know 50 goes into 10,000, but the largest even number that I know goes into both of them is 25. So, let's see, clear this. So, 625. Let's see, I forgot what I was going to do. 625 divided by 25 equals 25. 625 or 10,000 divided by the same number, 25, equals, as you can see up here, 400. I'll just hit equals 400. Then if you were to do the same thing again, 25 does go into both of these numbers. You could do 5 goes into both of them, but that would just take too long. You should start with the largest number. So that would end up 25 goes into itself one time. 25 goes into 416 times. Okay, so your final, well, I was writing 40 for some reason. Final answer would be 1/16. Okay. Let's see. We are on, not sure, okay, 242, same thing. Just over and over again. Square root of 242. Clear. And I may have not mentioned this earlier, guys, but so if we go back to the other page, I will show you. Okay, so remember, this section we're rounding these to the nearest tenth. So we have 15, because there's a 5 after the 10th. We have 5 here, which is the 10th, and since the 5 here, since the 100th place is a 5, that would then round this up to the next nearest number, which would be 6. So it would be 15.6. I noticed a crappy looking 6, but oh well. You aren't here for penmanship. Trying to think here if there's any other ones that you might need help with. Same with this one, just put that into the calculator, guys. You will get 10.9. This one here, remember, anything to the power of 0 on number 23, 112 to the power of 0 equals 1. Okay, these other ones I've pretty much already covered. So, last two problems we have is this. So, the cube shown below measures 6 inches on each side. You can find the volume of the cube by multiplying length times width times height. Which of the following expressions represents the volume of the cube? So, like they said, we can get this answer by multiplying length times width times height, which is this, length times width times height. Okay, well actually, not necessarily in that order, but they're all, we see each of the numbers are the same. So instead of writing 6 times 6 times 6 3 times, it says, which of the following represents the volume of the cube? Well, you know that this can be written like this, 6 to the power of 3. Okay, so we look at C here, and we see that it's number 6. 6 to the third power. Last but not least, which of the following expressions has the least value? Well, let's sort this bad boy out. Hope I didn't close the calculator this time. Think I might have, but I hope I didn't. I think it did. Okay, let me pull our calculator back up. Oh, okay, didn't close that. Cool. So, we have to find out which of these has the lowest value. So, let's do this. 3 to the negative third power equals 0.37. We really just need this first. I presume, since this is kind of easier, we probably just need the first 3. Let's see, so 0, 3. So anytime you see, like in the calculator, it says 0 point, anything to the left of the point, if it's a 0, it has no value whatsoever, so that's why I don't have them. So we have that. The second one is 4 to the power of 0, which we know anything to the power of 0 is 1. So that answer is 1. Then we have 4 to the power of 1, we know is the base number. Just to let you know, guys, this number here is considered the base. And this is the power. Okay. So we have 2 to the power of negative 4. Let's see that. 2 to the power of negative 4. And that's 0. I'm going to write it close to this one so that we can compare it closely. 0.6. Okay, we already know, because this number is larger than this one here, that the first one we did has the highest value, or the lowest value. So the answer to this question is A. Anyways, thanks a lot, guys, for sticking with it. This was lesson 30. I'll be posting more lessons up. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Anyways, thanks a lot. Have a good one.